Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, blue liquor shills, net slave servers, peasants, vassals, feminists. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. Let's go back to the good old USA and talk about this latest executive order by Barack Obama and the Barack Obama administration about addressing the gender pay gap. And essentially, it's going to increase some requirements of information that's reported back to government in order to ascertain where all these problems are. And well, how do I put this? This whole gender pay gap thing is a lie, and it's being addressed now. So we have the government intervening in yet another imaginary problem. And Barack Obama has brought this up in every single State of the Union address for the last 8 years, 7 years. And we've heard it all before in other States of the Union addresses, and every politician likes to throw it around, banter around about this mythological gender pay gap. And I don't know how to put it any better other than calling out you ladies who have fallen for this gender pay gap mythology. Now, of course, I'm going to get harangued about the fact that somebody's going to find some exceptions to this where actual gender pay gaps exist. But I'm talking about the big picture. And part of this big picture is this whole using of this gender pay gap to patronize women and to get their vote. And it seems to work every time. The same kind of rationale that goes towards women thinking having a vagina in the White House is the answer, even though the next Hitler, Hillary Clinton, is their choice right now. And sorry for the hyperbole calling Hillary the next Hitler. I just couldn't help myself. But anyway, this whole gender pay gap thing is political pandering of the worst kind, and particularly the pseudoscience that was used, and then the eagerness to which this mythology is embraced by the population as well as the political class, and of course the corporations who use it for marketing. But this gender pay gap has been debunked probably at least a dozen times, if not more, over the last 20 years. And I'll attach a lot of that debunking below because it's very important that you look at the facts. It's pseudoscience. It's trash science. The worst methodologies were used were basically just all the women who work and all the men who work were broken down, and they come up with this 79 cents on the dollar that women supposedly make. And it just isn't true. If you actually use actual methodology, age, specific circumstances, areas that one works, the fields you choose, the education you choose, the pay scales of the choices you make, then there really is no gender pay gap. None of those things were considered when doing these studies. One of the simplest ways to explain it is the fact that is there really a gender pay gap when the fact is men make choices, particularly getting education and going into the field. When they get college education, they go into things like engineering that pay a lot, where women tend to go into social sciences, and that has to do with predilections. And I've heard this ridiculous argument about, well, these jobs pay less because women do them, and I just don't buy that because there's just plenty of examples of these jobs are not paid less based on gender. For example, school teachers making less just because the field is dominated by women. That brings up another point about this. There's no real concern with equality here, because when they talk about the gender pay gap, they're not going to talk about the fact that female models make 10 to 100 times more than a male model, or that female strippers make more than male strippers, or that healthcare workers are dominated by women. Are they going to start quotas to have more men as healthcare workers, or a really good one as teachers, especially for the lower grades? Are they going to start having quotas to have more men hired because the field is dominated by women? So it's not really about equality. It's just political pandering. It's just more opportunism, and it's empty political pandering nonetheless, because, well, what are they going to do? They require more information. You're already using sex and age when reporting wages from businesses, and so they're just going to increase it by detail, I assume, because they're talking about having race and gender as part of it, and it's already part of it. But that's a moot point, because like I say, it really doesn't mean anything other than the fact that it will be another way for the government to inevitably track more information about people, particularly people associated with their work and their pay, and it'll have a lot more to do with everything else besides sexism, I assure you. But anyway, this gender discrimination is already illegal. So that's another example of why this is political pandering and why it's bullshit and why it doesn't mean anything. And once again, the government intervening to address an imaginary problem, because not only that, they're just adding more regulation on top of regulation on top of regulation, which is what the government does. Gender discrimination is already illegal, and there's plenty of ways to address any real issues. If anybody is in a workplace and they find that they are indeed being paid less for the exact same position for somebody with the exact same qualifications, then there's a legitimate avenue for grievance right now. But it becomes problematic, of course, when it actually gets a little more complex than that. For example, a female who maybe has taken a maternity leave off before, in a perfect world, maybe that shouldn't count against her, but we live in a corporate world, not a perfect world, so it will count against you. Just as a male basically taking a year off for rehab would probably affect his standing at his job as well. So anyway, there you have it. We have this executive order, and Obama's going after the imaginary gender pay gap. So good luck with that, because since it doesn't exist, there's going to be no way to prove that he fixed it. But it's going to be great, because after that, he's going to save the unicorns. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.